The next part to wait, so once you have identified this opportunity or gap and you're sure that it's going to make that much difference, is to research your competition, analyze the competitive landscape, and identify your unique value proposition. Again, we tend to talk to people whom we know. So they are friends, family, friends of friends, and that's our normal circle to get any ideas validated. And that circle seems to be very supportive. It's always very supportive. So you may not get right kind of feedback from them. You'll always get encouraging feedback. And that's where a lot of these mistakes happen. So people get, oh yeah, this is good. Everyone's saying good about this. I must go for this. No, not at all. I think most of this feedback needs to come from outside of friends and family. That's a very important point. So once you go out, you need to find people who will always ask, so what? You say a feature, you say this is what's going to happen, and they should say, so what? So those kind of questions asked early will validate your idea, verify your idea, and then it will prove that, yes, it's worth pursuing that. In general, when you are forming this idea and doing the research, also try and build some defenses in the concept. That will make it difficult for others to mimic or copy. We've seen a number of apps that kind of do similar things. And if you are set out to or committed to building this idea, and you find someone else coming through, easily taking over just by building another app, that's not a very good place to be then. And in that case, what I would suggest always is to build some defenses in the concept itself. How can you make it difficult for anyone to just simply mimic and copy? A couple of pointers I can put here is compliances. See if you can get some compliances and register yourself into that. Can you mandate certain training or certifications for anyone to be able to deliver those services through the platform or app? These things are very specialized and will take other people some time to get there, which will give you a longer runway. So that's a very, very important point, I would say, in the journey. And once you have identified that, you've built some defenses, you're sure about the idea, the next other thing is take conclusive action. After identifying the problem and knowing of competition, you have to take the next action. If you just sit on it, that's not going to work. So what is the biggest hurdle in taking conclusive action? It's you. I met so many talented people over the last 10 years who have very good grasp of what the gap in their market is, what solution can disrupt, improve the way it works, but fail to take any action. Many times we have discussion about their idea, and a couple of years later, when we meet again, they tell me about someone who launched the same concept and are quite successful. We all procrastinate and keep pushing things for later, as they do not affect us now. So it's really, you are in your own way. If you're convinced, you've done the research, it's just your own decision to move forward. Any questions? Yes, please ask, or I'm happy to move to the next slide. So what is the process? What is the process of going through or building a new startup around tech? There are 4 key stages, as you can see here. Discovery. Brainstorm and refine your business idea. Think about all the actors of the system and their interactions. Discovery also gives a lot of information about what you have never thought of or seen. And hence, it is very important that you do discovery with a subject matter expert. If you are a subject matter expert, then you have a tech person with you, you have a design person with you. At least these 3 kind of people must be there. They could be from your friends and family. That's not a problem, or from a professional acquaintance, but that will bring the right mix to kind of start discovering what your idea really means. How are you going to implement it? Who is going to use this app or system, and that will clear a lot of clutter out of your mind. The next thing in that phase is finalizing the features. Once you've got some clarity, visibility, you got to move towards finalizing certain features. If you make a big, huge laundry list, it might take us years to build. That's not a great idea. You have to think about a minimum viable product. Or rather, I always prefer calling it minimum sellable product, because why would you build something if it's not sellable? So always think that sellable aspect into it, why people would want to use it, why people would want to pay for it. And they are very, very important. And that will help you finalize these features. Obviously, all of this revolves around certain budget, but that's the way to go for it, to define, do the discovery and finalize a feature set that's going to be part of your minimum sellable product. The third stage in this process is UI UX design, and maybe deciding the tech stack and tech solutioning of the app or the system. Now, I know a lot of founders, and some of them, especially from tech background, they are very ignorant of how well usable the app is or how well looking the app is. Generally, they tend to say, oh, if it's working, then why do we need to do anything else? It's quite the opposite in my experience. If you put lots of features in the app and the user cannot easily find them or use them, it's absolutely of no value. So I would rather keep the number of functions limited, but make it so easy to use that whoever sees it for the first time falls in love with it. Honestly, tell me, you've installed so many apps, I've installed so many apps. How much chance do we give to that app? One, maximum one. If I open the app, I use it, I like it, it's easy to use, it's quick. That's the only chance, the first ever time, that I will say, yes, that looks good, I'm going to keep it. Otherwise, they'll just be there and you'll never look at them again. So you just got one chance and you don't want to lose it for a simple reason because you didn't pay enough attention. So this is a very important part. I'm a techie, but I'm still saying UX and UI design is the most important thing in this process. Always, always think about it. There are a few things I'm going to share about my experience building some of the startups that I've worked with. In one of the case, the founder was very, very obsessed with building so many features, lots of features, lots of tech involved, very excited, doing something that they wanted to do. And obviously, it took us over a year to build it. What we realized was a lot of that could have been avoided. In the end, unfortunately, the startup had to pivot or shut down, which is the case with a lot of them. But we could have got to know the end result, much before if we would have avoided building all of that together. There was a CMS system that we built, which was very complex, and we lost 6 months building it. A lot of money and effort went into that. We could have possibly used some other ready-made systems to prove the idea. Proving the idea, making sure you get the real user feedback is more important than trying to build everything in one go. So that's really a big takeaway from this. The second one I would think is be ready to tweak and change. One of the apps we did with a startup, sorry, I'm not taking any names here for privacy reasons, but yeah, one of them, there's a social kind of app. People come on there for peer support. They wanted to do a lot of talks and panels, and they thought, those are going to be more useful. There were groups functionality on there, but that was not very prominent. But we realized the app is getting more and more used for groups than any of our panel turnouts or talks that people were doing. So we had to pivot. We had to completely revamp and change our designs, go back to building the groups functionality, which is more engaging, easy to use. and we completely changed the app in sort of next 3 months. And that's going to happen. You think of something, you go for it, it goes into the hands of the user, and they decide, no, I want something else. And that really drives. But are you in a situation or a position to take that change? If you're not mentally prepared, then you're going to break down. You say, oh, this is not working. But we got to be ready to tweak and change. To be honest, you got to be ready to stop. And I have been into or worked with startups where we built a product uh, pretty well, but we saw that a lot of competition has come up with a lot more resources, a much better product, and we stand almost no chance. It will be futile. We actually stopped, and those calls were taken with a very harsh, very very sad. It's a sad feeling, but ultimately we had to do that, and we did. So be ready to stop. There is no guarantees that someone else is not going to do a better job, and hence why the discovery and taking the feedback from the right kind of people is more important than how you feel about it. Okay. Funding, fourth stage. I think it's part of the same process, but funding is really very important. If you do not have enough funding, you will be stressed out in the middle of something that you're set out to build, which is not a great idea. So always prepare your funds. You can self-fund, you can go for government grants, you can approach angels or investors, friends, family. Those are good sort of starting points for funding. um, Also, if you thought of building tech, I think overall tech takes about 20% of the budget. It should take about 20%. So if you thought, just as an example, 10K you have spent building an app, then I would think you have at least 20 to 30K more to promote it, to make it work, do the marketing, do the sales. Those things will define the way it will progress. So always keep that kind of thing. Even for the build, if you have received a quote from a tech partner or developer for a certain amount of money, let's say 10K again, then I would keep at least 30 to 50% contingency, because you are bound to change. Because as you go more and more deeper, release its versions, you're going to say, oh no, not this, that, and that, and that. It keeps changing. Then that's the only way it will live as well. So let's not stop the change, but let's be prepared, even financially, from that point of view. Any questions at this juncture? I know some of you have joined a little bit later, but um, any questions? Okay, if you don't have a question, I have one for you. Have you ever done a feature discovery session yet? I think Amrita is going to give a poll. I would love to see some
I'd
of
like
you
to have a
answering this.
question.
Sorry?
I have a question.
Okay,
Let me
go
see,
on.
Abe.
Yes, yes, please.
I on funding. I saw a video online of somebody that was talking about the strategy of funding. An app or a tech startup, and they didn't talk about the risks involved in that, but on my own, I thought there may be risk. He said that, for example, if you are thinking of an app and you have problems with funding, you could approach the people that you want the app to help and say to them, look, I've got this concept of an app. Would you put funds in it and I'll build it? You're still going to build an app. You don't have the app yet, but you are
Yeah,
approaching the people you're going to fund
yes,
to use the app with like maybe your client, and then saying, look, I've got this that I have that's going to solve your problem. It doesn't exist yet. Can you
correct.
help? What would you say about that strategy, having spoken about protecting your IP? Would you um, see any risk involved in that? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, TB, for asking this question. And I have come across that. So your potential customers can be your funders as well, but it depends on what's their interest. Again, but I doubt they will be able to fund you fully. Anybody who wants to invest either has some sort of interest in ongoing, revenue. They want a return on their investment. If someone tells me, I'll build you an app, you be the user, but fund me X amount of money, I don't know how much of use that app is for me, how much of value that app adds to me. So yes, I am open to do that, but whether that will really make cover for all the funds you need. But the other way is more, I've seen in more, which is people build the MVPs with smaller budgets, but then get pilot customers like that. So customers are normally, in my experience, ready to do pilots free of charge, but give you a name or a testimonial that they are your customers and they are using it. I've not seen a lot of customers who are ready to fund you for the whole app or system that you're about to do. If you find someone, it's really subjective matter. So you've got to really figure out what's involved, what are their interests into it. And yes, obviously, IP is a big thing. So you got to sign all the non-disclosures and any other agreements you want to do with them so that you keep the IP. I hope that's kind of gave you some sort of idea.
Thank you. If you, yeah, will it be too much if I ask another question?
I think we can go for another question.
Okay. If you are in a process of, you know, trying to find the right developer for your app concept, you probably have to speak to one, two, three, or four or more, and trying to weigh their strengths and the right one that would understand you. Any tips around that? Because
100%.
now I believe that you would go sign a non-disclosure with this one before, because they would say to you normally, I can't quote you because I don't understand the concept that well. And then you have to like reveal the whole thing and sign, then leave, go to the other one. Like I found that quite, a bit of a trouble. Any tips around that?
Yes, sure. Again, you have to sign an NDA. That's very important. And that's why I talked about building defenses right in the concept. So if it's so easy for me to just copy your idea, I wouldn't worry too much, to be honest, unless they are in the same field and they are very much, into that same industry, then there might be a slight chance. But, people talk about a lot of these things. No one ever takes enough. It's a lot of commitment in all different ways. So I wouldn't think it's so easy to just get an idea and then, start copying it and and just making an MVP or app does not
Yeah.
mean it will succeed. So I wouldn't worry too much, but we should do the documentation for sure. That's a good thing. I am going to talk about certain technology aspects. Like the biggest thing I have seen is everyone who tries to get into the new ideas or launch their apps, they're already working somewhere. They're already doing something. So they do not have
Mm.
enough bandwidth to go to talk and four different companies and take quotes and compare. I do have some content over there. So stay here and I will go through that if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Yeah, so let's move on to the next part of this. So early tech challenges. What are the tech challenges if you have now come to this stage, you got some funds, how are you going to go about it? So one of the challenges is who will make the tech decisions? Do you Are you technical yourself? If not, do you have a friend or family or an acquaintance who can do some contribution towards that? Anyone who is charged with this responsibility will need to know the role of tech in overall success of the startup. So if that is the app or system pivotal, that without that the startup cannot survive, or is it just a supportive action? Where does the tech fit into this overall thing? Where do you want to take this startup? What do you value most while you're set out to do. What is the purpose? What is the goal? All these things will matter. And I always recommend people to write their vision document. It sounds big words, but it's really very important, because unless you have actually figured out what exact vision you have and why you're doing it, no one else can really align to it. And as the team, as you form the team, they really need to align to this in order to make any technical decisions. So, the next one could be, how do you decide a tech stack then? Whether it's going to be mobile or just a web or both, which cloud to go for, uh, what kind of design we should have, architecture we should have. That's pretty very much technical. And even if you are technical, would you be able to handle this at the same time as talking to so many other people, preparing for marketing, preparing or taking some feedback? There's so much going on, that would you be able to do it yourself? These early decisions can cost dearly if taken casually. And I've seen that many times. So we have to undo things again because they were never thought of, or they were taken by people who didn't even know what actually was going to happen, why we are doing this. It's really very important to align. Another challenge is if you decide to hire your own developers or even a tech partner, how are you going to interview? Code comparison, there you go. That's your question here. And I would also always check, what the past work is, if there are any references when you're doing developers or any tech agencies. Either ways, you got to know the people you want to work with. Another question there is, have you ever thought of compliance matters? These days, information security, GDPR, there are big legislations and could be huge fines if you're not careful about them. Are you working with someone who at least knows certain things around it and can guide you or build the tech with this information on? One of the most important things I also would say is investors' tech queries. So investors, if you're approaching angel investors or any other investor for serious money, they are definitely going to ask you who is building your tech, who is your tech leader, what is your team looking like, will they be able to deliver? Because if they can't, then nobody would want to invest into such a business. So it's very important that you have a solid backing there who can convince the investors to put some money in there. Tech can take up a lot of mind share and deviate business progress as well. So, although you can do that, but then, you're just going to do that and not the business. So it's always a choice, or it will slow down. If you have that time, absolutely no problem. You should do it yourself. If you don't, then do consider a co-founder or a CTO or within friend, family, acquaintance, wherever. That will really help you propel faster. Any questions? Right, I'm going to move next. So what are the approaches to build the tech? So you can either build your own team. With that, you'll have to start recruiting your own team. Obviously you'll need someone who can take these initial interviews and help you in the selection process. You can do the HR side, but the technological things need to be, and for that they need to already look at what's the solution look like, what kind of skill set we're going to need in order to build this, whether web, whether mobile or both, or so all of those, it's a sequential process. You can't start building a team without deciding the architecture, the technology stack. So that's the next step into it. How do you build? Do you want to build your own team? Do you want to get your own developers? You can't just because your brother is a developer say, okay, you build it in this technology, but that has no sense in your solution. So you've got to be really careful. The other way is to find a tech partner, find an agency. Again, I would say a right agency, and there are so many. And trust me, I've worked in so many tech companies. We all do very different type of things. Although it seems like app building, but there are various skill sets required, various different type of understanding required. So from that perspective, I think I would always try to figure out what was the past work, what kind of things they are happy to learn, able to learn, and contribute towards the growth, because it's very important that in a small team, everyone contributes, even if it's an external partner. The other third approach is hybrid approach. So you could possibly start with one or two developers on your side, hire them directly, and then work with a tech partner for speed. So you still have someone locally available to you, and then and then work with, because you need a lot more people to get this done faster. You work with the tech partner. Hybrid approach can also be looked at in a way that the initial MVP or MSP can be done with the tech partner, because it will be very, very cost effective. You'll be able to get the feedback, you'll be able to get the investments based on that. You'll be able to see how the market is reacting to it. And then when you know that the clarity comes in and you can see it's very promising, then you can start investing more into hiring a local team as well and still have that kind of hybrid approach. I've seen that working a lot. So, build an MVP or MSP with a partner, and then as the clouds clear up, you see better future, you go for an internal team as well. Right. So let's move to the next one. So what are the challenges in building your own team? Recruitment, trust me, is the most time-taking, time-consuming part of any tech company. We are a service provider as well, and I know we spend a huge lot of time, right from sourcing the CVs to doing interviews, to getting them on board, to getting them productive, to getting them to do something useful that you thought about at least 6 months ago. So it's a lot of time-consuming process. You have to define the roles and responsibilities, reach out to agencies to get the CVs. There is if you are not very well known, it's hard to attract people, good people as well. So you've got to be offering much better compensation structures, or sometimes equity as well. Equity is one of the things why people might want to, or why very good people might want to come and join you. So that's a very good takeaway, I would think. If you're thinking about hiring someone senior, someone solid, be prepared to sort of give some equity to them. Obviously, fostering a collaborative culture, you just don't want people to come in, but to work with other people or other external agencies as you go along. Now that's quite a massive job. Again, if you're alone, that's going to take a huge lot of time. So I would always recommend working with someone technical who can take over some of these responsibilities. Next one. Yeah, some of the tips why you might want to consider a tech partner. Essentially, if you need multiple different skills, but not all for full time. For example, I might want to get the mobile app developer only for 3 months, but I know the rest of the system is web-based and APIs and database, but I don't need them after that, or I don't need as much of their time after that. You can't recruit for someone for 3 months and then not have them around at all. So that's a very good advantage. Faster time to market, we already spoken about that. So you can quickly ramp up or ramp down without much hassle, and try and achieve more speed. Scalability and flexibility in resource allocation, we just spoke about it. Risk mitigation with a small in-house team. So if you have a 1 or 2 developers, which I would think in the initial days, it's going to be like that. And at some point they decide to leave for whatever reason, the startup idea does not die because of that. So you have someone who's still there, who can still keep supporting you and progressing while you try to get another developer. So it's always a good idea. That's why I say hybrid approach is much better, if not to start with, but at a later point. And obviously want to avoid recruiting hassle, then you better work with a tech company, because they are used to doing that. Trust me, I know in our company, we work with at least 20 different hiring agencies, and we keep hiring all the time, trying to find the right gems for our team. It's a big hassle. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to move
Yes,
forward.
I'll have another question.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Say you have heard now, you've gone past the stage of getting the app built now, and you about to start, generating some income. Some of these developers that build these apps would say, okay, we build and then we'll maintain the app, and then you have an option of saying, okay, I'll hire my own maintenance engineer that will keep the app running, especially in the first stage.
Mhm.
Um, is it advisable, or is it like, what is the practice, the general practice? Is it a safe thing to say, oh, look, guys, thank you, I built the app, I've got my own person that'll be doing the maintenance for me. There may be somebody that have another skill set, like you're talking about skill, somebody that now can maintain the app, but also understand the business, because the building of the app is something else. Now, running it on a business plan to achieve the business goal with that app, it's something else. You may need a partner that would maintain, and or in a different area again. Or would it be same thing to say, look, people who have built this app are the best to maintain it? How do you make
Right.
that business decision?
Right. Okay. So I'll put it in a slightly different perspective. And that happens quite a lot. It's a natural question. But I'll tell you what, if the agency or external partner has built your app and still they do not understand what your business is, then you haven't got the right app yet. That's what how I would think it. It takes time. In my experience, it takes initial few weeks to sort of get a hang. That's why I spoke a lot about creating a vision document, aligning the team, why we are doing certain things, what is the solution. And they don't need to understand each and every nuance of this thing, but a broad understanding of why this is happening. Only then the app will come out well. Otherwise, it will be an app which will have all sorts of different usability issues or things. Let's say even that is also like a decent level. People have come to me where uh, they got it developed from someone, but they are unable to support it. So people have come to me at a later stage for support. And especially if you wanted to work with one person, whether you are hiring them in house or a freelancer or whatever relationship you have with them, companies tend to be a better choice because we have a larger strength. We are not dependent on one person. We can definitely support ongoing basis and for a longer time as well, like the number of holidays or through the holidays, through the time zone differences. So these are a lot of things to think. If you are giving this app to your real customers who are paying money, they deserve a good support. How are you going to do it with just one person? So hiring internally works well because you want to create that kind of knowledge within your own team and not have everything in the tech partners team, because of obvious reasons. We've been working like that for many customers, but if the relationship goes to that level, that's fine. But if not, then you at least have someone on your side. Again, it's a lot to do with the costs. How much does it cost to hire someone locally? How much can we do it? And we don't need full-time people, but we need a lot of different skill set when the app is live. So there could be DevOps guys look after the cloud. There could be third-party integration guys. There could be database guys. There could be, and it's a combination of all of this. It's very difficult to find one developer who can do all of this for you and still be there during holidays or weekend times or whatever support you need, depending on the app. So it's really up until now, I have not come across where people want to hire someone for ongoing support internally. They would rather hire, get the app done from them, but do the support with a company like us. That is how I have seen it. But it works both ways. So that's my experience. I'm not saying that it can never work, but that's my experience. I hope I answered your question. Right. So I'm going to talk about a case study and kind of, whatever I've given as steps so far, how did that apply? What happened? So that we can relate things together. Again, I can't take names here. It's a real app for a UK-based startup we have done. They are into phase 3 of their development. So the first thing was to identify the opportunity and do some research around it. So they had already done that, to be honest. When they came to me, they had already identified this opportunity there. So what was the opportunity? They are into estate planning, so wills, trusts, that kind of thing. And they had to fill too many forms and repeated information, names and addresses and relations on every form. So there were 7 or 8 different forms, 35-page document they had to fill in. And obviously it's not a thing to be done in one meeting, so they would have a number of meetings with the client, back and forth, and then all this information captured on a PDF file or an actual printout will scan and go to their admin. And the admin will actually make those entries into their CRM system, into their WillSuite system. So it was a very time-consuming job. Any instruction would take a few weeks to carry on. So that was the main problem. And they know that if they can put some system or app solution in place, that can become much faster. So the admin work, back and forth, multiple entry, all these problems are can be easily solved using such a system. So we decided to start working on it. So they sorted out. They also did a lot of research around it. I think there are only 1 or 2 other companies who do such a thing, but they do not do it for anybody else. So they only do it for their own business. No one is there to offer this to other businesses as a SaaS model. So they were very keen that we'll do that, but the project was quite big. So again, we went back to the same kind of learnings, and we said, okay, let's do an MSP. So the MSP, what we decided at the juncture or phase 1 was just to do an iPad app. So the front end interaction becomes much swifter, and it directly connects to their CRM system via APIs. And we actually did that. So it took us, I think, 3 to 4 months to build the first one, first phase, and we went live with it. Obviously, once you go live, there are a few learnings, and we kept improving that as and when, and keep supporting that. And through that success, when they saw that there is quite a bit of change, and there's quite a bit of interest from other people to sort of get this for their companies, then they decided to go big on that. So then they invested into it and went for phase 2, which we have recently completed. So we then went ahead and completely removed the third-party backend systems, which is their CRM. That was quite a big system, and we built a bespoke CRM for them, which deals with the same app that we have created, but now all the backend and the admin and everything else is tied up together and all their own IP. So that's phase 2. So we exactly followed the same patterns. It's worked quite well so far. The third thing now we are doing is we are building their phase 3, where now that since all the requirements are there, we built everything. They are going for SaaS model now. So they wanted to first try it out for themselves, and there has to be a few tweaks done to be able to then spin off the same system for any other paying customers for using their companies. So we are right now working on that. So from a couple of pages of write-up to doing research to starting with the MSP, and up until now, we have done a very step-by-step calculated risk job, and that has worked very well so for us. But the biggest challenge for us was because we were not from the estate planning background. For my team sitting in India, or even for me myself, it was difficult to understand what those concepts are. The first few calls on discovery session, we actually went through a lot of notes taking, understanding basic concepts behind estate planning, created a glossary of terms, and a couple of pages of documents only to educate anybody who was going to work on this project. What does it mean? What does each term mean? How does this work? So that any interaction with the client, which happens almost every day on a Scrum call, is Swift. So it took us a month to get there, but it was very, very useful because we have been working on this for like a year or more now. And it was well worth the investment. And that's why I always propose doing a discovery, because then everyone comes together on a common grounds, and try to understand each other better, and the communication then just flows. And that's a proper breeding ground for new concepts. That's the kind of environment we want to build. Um, yeah, so conclusive action, yeah, that's what I always keep talking about, that they didn't just sit there, but they started investing, initially small, but after that, in a big way, because they got very, very positive feedback of actually using customers. People were after them to say, oh, I want that app, when are you releasing it? So then they went bigger on that. So basically, just what we did, it was an end-to-end kind of service there, right from discovery, design, into production, ongoing support, phase two, and we're still supporting them ongoing. I think we've potentially built a multi-million pound IP with this company. And obviously, it belongs to them. We are their partners in tech in this case. We've got proper documentation done with clarity on who owns what. Right. So, any questions around this? Right. No problem. We'll move on. I have one for you again. So, have you ever taken and compared quotes from tech companies? I'd love to have your feedback, because quotes is what you typically go for when you find a tech partner. They will send you a quote. I want an app. Okay, you might send them a one pager or two pager, and then they come back to you maybe with a call, and then they send you a quote. And the quotes are various different types and sizes. I'll just give you a few seconds to answer this poll, and I will kind of give some guidelines on code comparison.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Yes, I've received calls. If I understood your question,
Okay.
one of the surprising things about receiving these calls, I was surprised at how huge the difference was between some of these codes, and I was wondering if the cheaper guy will actually, do the job, or I began to doubt if that guy was so expensive, and
Right.
maybe that the guy that would do the right thing, and then the other guy would give me a different thing. I'm like, I checked his website. He seems like they've had good clients, but why is he so cheap? Does it mean he's not good enough? And I was wondering if I was thinking about it the right way. If cheap means bad and expensive means good.
No, no, definitely not, Devi. That's not how I would look at it. But yes, I mean, you got to really understand. Someone really gave me a very funny quote about the cost. Being, if something is very cheap, doesn't mean turpentine is very cheap. So will we go and drink it? We would need wine, right? We can't drink turpentine because it's cheaper. So that's how I would look at it. What is the kind of service you are expecting? What is the kind of customers you are trying to serve? What kind of product you want to sell? You want to sell something that sells for pennies? You want to sell something that sells for a few pounds or hundreds of pounds? The kind of service you want to build, the kind of tech you want to build it's really about branding as well. So you want to buy something cheaper, you can go to Primark. You want to buy something more expensive, go to Next. And there is a reason why they are more expensive and cheaper. You got to find the right fit. Again, even for tech companies, that's why I say there are so many different type of tech companies. You got to find the one which will do the right kind of job, and what is the kind of job they have been doing. And that's a harder bit. How would you kind of find out? You might have to do a couple of calls, due diligence. And that's why I'm very skeptical. I've never come across customers who have looked at four other people. One or two, it's so exhausting. How can you even look at the third? I don't know. If you have to, then it's really a thing for you. But so yeah, so just quickly moving on to this next slide, where I'm talking about certain basics of how to analyze a code. So I would put it into, comparing apple to oranges. That's the kind of job you're having to do. But how can you still bring it closer in terms of what does it cover, what something does not cover, and what it must cover, so that you know which code is useful for you. So core functionality is essential for the app's purpose. So they have covered all the functionality you want. They have a way of discovering and requirements gathering, because sometimes the communication is not at par, and then yeah, I understand everything, and then they go and they build it, and then you say, oh, this is not something I want. So it's got to be much more interactive, much more engaging, right from the initial stages. So I would definitely think about that, especially when it's a new concept. Timely delivery, quality assurance process, how are they going to test it? Do they offer ongoing support? Do they offer any warranty on what they've built? All these are must-haves if I am going to do that. Communication, interaction plan, how are they going to communicate, how the team is going to be available, is there a single point of contact allocated, because you don't want to be going after a backend developer, a front-end developer, because you know them, but you need to have someone who can then look after this whole team and give you a right kind of report. Again, experience in working with startups, I would typically say, because working with startup is quite different to working in general in software development. It needs that innovator's mindset, as well as an ability to work in constraints and finding new solutions. Need is the mother of inventions. If you are inventing something, creating something new, you need people who are used to doing those kind of things. Security and compliance and scalability, these are also aspects we would want to see in a code, whether they have thought about it, what kind of thing they offer, even if it's an additional add-on, but they have thought about it and they are able to offer that, is a big plus. Nice to have includes automation tests, technical documentation. Obviously, if you have no way to take it anywhere, then I don't know what will you do with that. But having that with yourselves could be useful. User training and additional features for better UX. What do they have a UX UI person in-house? How much they are dependent, and can they provide some user training if required? And the third one is SaaSification. So can you make it in a way that it can be easily given to other customers? Doesn't need a lot of effort for every new customer to be onboarded. That's what I mean by SaaSification. And integration with third-party services. Are they aware how these login with Facebook, login with Google, payment services, even marketing technology services, where it gives details of which features are being used more than the other ones. So very insightful feedback. How are they aware of these things? How do they do that? So these are nice to have, in my opinion. Any questions around this? No, that's fine. Perfect. Right. So I tried to kind of summarize the key takeaways. This is kind of my 20 years experience building these different things. And obviously, I can't fit all of this in this short webinar, but I thought of putting very important ones here. Your idea should bring at least 5x to 10x improvement. 30% is not enough. Full stop. That's very, very important. Do your research outside of friends and family. Again, I've already elaborated that. Do your funding with friends and family if possible, because then they will be more supportive. That's where you need the support from. Include design and tech in your discovery. That's very important, because you'll have all aspects covered, from subject matter expertise, design angles, technical angle. So all three people come together, then they're bound to create something viable, feasible, and talk about all the aspects in those discovery sessions. Don't ignore UX and UI. It's very, very important. I already said that. So have lesser features, but have them more usable. Don't build too much too early. Yeah, because you will take longer to take feedback, and it will take longer to kind of know that whether it's going to work or not. The shorter it is, the faster it is, the better it is, because you know where to pivot, where to change, what happen. And building an ecosystem like that, a team like that who can quickly move, is the key challenge here. So it's very important that you don't build too much too early. Think of MSP rather than MVP, and I'll tell you what, when you start thinking about sell, minimum sellable product, automatically a lot of features will take precedence than the other ones. Although you would love some of the features, when you say, oh, I want to sell this, suddenly your orientation will change towards how the customer would want to see it. And that's very important, because if there is no customer, there is no startup. It's not going to survive. So start with an MSP. Automatically, a lot of things will fall in place. Take continuous feedback and be prepared to change. And that's what I've been saying all this webinar. Be prepared to change, be prepared to stop if required. If you've done all the discovery well, all the due diligence well, research well, then you'll probably not have to do that. So we need to spend a lot of time doing the initial ones. Right. So we are almost towards the end of this webinar, but yeah, if you have any questions, happy to be here for a couple of minutes. But what next? You've attended this webinar. You have certain things in your mind. I may have answered some of your questions. I may not have answered them. So yeah, do write to me. You've got my email address. You can reach out to me, write to me, and I'll try to give you whatever information I have, and try to satisfy that. But the next thing we are going to do is do a feature discovery workshop. The first of the calls, what we do in discovery phase. So if you are really interested in doing that, you'll see a poll, just let us know, and we will share the details of the workshop when it's going to happen, possibly in next 2 to 3 weeks time. So it's going to be a real proper workshop. We'll do in a group, but not more than 5, because quite a rigorous workshop, so we can't really do it at a very large scale, 4 or 5 people at a time. Obviously, you can request a one-to-one workshop and we can work out something, but this one is going to be a group workshop. Right. Thank you so much. Yes.
Oh, okay. You want to take a question?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just feedback on just your thoughts on my strategy in what I'm doing. I was chatting with somebody and I was asking if the call is going to take 5 months to build an app that I've asked them to build. My strategy is to have that built, and I have an ad agency, a marketing agency that will be doing marketing for me. They're not involved at all. So they're going to build a website and they're going to try to sell value to my clients and help me communicate value to my clients. And the question was, when would be the right time for them to start advertising and marketing the app? Just at the end of it, or if I'm when I start building some hype just towards the timeline that I've agreed, or I can start building the hype. Would that build a pressure on me to kind of deliver? Maybe, I don't know. Would it be the best time to sort of start putting
Yeah.
my budgeting, my marketing budget to use now? Your
Right.
thoughts on
Okay.
that?
Yeah, good question again, Devi. What I would suggest, again, it's a little bit subjective here, but if your idea is completely new, no one has seen something like that before, you'll have to start educating people much earlier in the game, because they don't even know what's going to happen. What is it about? If your idea is kind of improvement to an existing app, or much better than an existing app, so it's a step forward. If that is the way you're looking at it, then I can wait to see my beta. But just before the beta release, I would start doing some sort of marketing, reaching out. But I would start gathering interest, feedback, audience based on my pitch deck right from day one. because that is what you want. You want people to pay, to be able to pay for the app. So I would always be interested
Mm,
in finding out,
mm,
saying good things. You meet me at some networking event. Oh yeah, that's really good. Or looks nice or wonderful. And you say,
mm.
okay, take this app, pay me a couple of quid.
Yep.
Then, oh yeah, it's 2 quids. Okay, fine. Even 2 quids, people will not pay me. I won't pay. I mean, let others be. But I won't pay 2 quid for something that I really don't want. So it's
Mm,
really important that I start taking that feedback, that kind of marketing messaging, awareness messaging, right from beginning. But yes, any promises around the availability of the app, you can obviously work out based on um, when your team is going to deliver this.
thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, that's all, to be honest. I'm so glad all of you joined, and I hope I have tried to give some nuggets of information. I'm happy to connect on my LinkedIn. This is my QR code on LinkedIn, so you can always reach out to me and ask any other further questions. But yeah, do let us know, and I will inform you about our workshop very soon. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Lovely to speak to you. Take care. Bye bye.